Hello YouTube, this is a review of the LEM number 32 aluminum meat grinder. I'll get it right out there. This isn't a paid promotion. We bought this grinder ourselves and we really like it, so we're going to do a review. It's got a nice cast aluminum body. It's very lightweight. It comes with 2 plates, 1 set of knives, and a bushing, some bearings, the worm, end screw, and a handle. We'll go into assembling the grinder. First thing we need to do when we assemble the grinder is we put our first washer on, then we install our bearing, followed by the bushing. Just verify that it turns freely. Then insert it into the body of the grinder. We always start out grinding with a coarse plate. We got to put our knife in first. Coarse plate. I try to always grind with the knife on the same side of the plate. And we put our end screw on. Hand tight. The next step, put on your handle. You can see it's keyed, and put in the retaining screw. We bought a 4-foot piece of butcher block to mount our grinder onto, and I drilled stainless bolts up through the bottom and put neoprene washers on to hold the grinder steady. And then over each one of the bolts we put a washer and a wing nut. The butcher block is nice and heavy and just keeps it from sliding around all over the place. Okay, well, you can see we have our grinder set up now. We like to grind into a steam table pan, and as you can see, the only real downside with this grinder is it doesn't sit up very tall and the pan wants to tip a little bit. I've got 25 pounds of seasoned pork here we're going to turn into brats, and so we'll go through grinding a full 25 pounds of meat just so that you can see how long it takes with one person. Here we go. I just load this thing up about a handful at a time and start turning. I like to just kind of adjust the tension on the end plate there. I always do my first grind through a coarse plate, and then we'll grind a second time through the fine plate. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got this pork cut into pretty large chunks, and the grinder doesn't have any problem just digesting it right up. It does a pretty good job. When making things like brats and sausage, we like to season our pork before grinding. It helps to mix the flavor through. We're getting close to being done here with our 25 pounds. Okay, that's the last of our 25 pounds of meat. That's our first grind. We decided that this pork looks a little lean, so I'm going to go to the cooler and I'm going to grab a couple pounds of pork. We'll grind that through this coarse plate before we mix everything back up and run it through a second time. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we need to change out our grinder plate. Off camera I went ahead and mixed up some previously rendered lard in with our pork. This pork was previously frozen earlier last month. We didn't get stuff ordered in time to get it all done on one day. So we're going to unscrew our end. What I like to do is give the handle a little turn. You'll have a small amount of meat that didn't get ground the first time, not much. It's okay, we'll go ahead and hit that on our second grind. We just take our knife. We'll take the chunks of meat off, and then we'll just remove what's left of this little bit of sinew buildup here on our knife, and we'll discard that. Put our knife back in and go ahead and pop our plate on and our locking ring. We'll take this meat that didn't get hit the first pass and we'll just go ahead and load that right back up into the hopper. We'll take this mess and bring it over to the sink to wash it up. Okay, so this is the last of our second grinding of pork. Off camera I mixed in some lard. It was looking a little too lean, and I also added a little bit of water. We butchered this pig earlier in the month, and with the global supply situation we weren't able to get our seasonings and stuff in time. And so this pork has all been in the freezer, and the lard has already been all rendered and processed. So in many ways it makes it a little easier. The pork grinds better when it's really cold. But as you can see, this grinder does a pretty good job. I didn't want to bore you with another 5 minutes of grinding and grinding and grinding for the second time. The second grind goes a little faster in general. Just put in smaller handfuls. You know, about that big. Just drop them in and just keep her cranking, and it does a pretty good job grinding meat. Overall, I'm very happy with this meat grinder. I wish it sat up a little bit taller. I will be putting blocks underneath it, some longer screws to get it up a little bit higher. Add a couple more inches will be very beneficial. I do have sausage stuffing tubes for this for doing small batches. I haven't used them yet. We've had this grinder for about a year, but I've also got a 25-30 pound meat stuffer, sausage stuffer that we'll be using later on in this video as we finish mixing up our brats and stuffing casings. But yeah, very happy with this product from LEM. It's very easy to clean. All I do is just unbolt it, take the guts out, take it outside, blast it out with the hose real fast, and then just finish up in the kitchen. Very easy to clean. The aluminum is pretty much maintenance free. The only thing I do is put a little bit of oil on the threads on the end cap and put a little bit of light oil on food grade oil, olive oil or something, on your grinder plates and your knives when you put it into storage to prevent rust. But it's been a great grinder. Very happy with our purchase. Just needs to sit up a little taller is really the only complaint I have. For a manual grinder, this is the nicest one I've used. I really like the bearings that it rolls on. It makes it turn very easily. It reduces a lot of friction, and it puts all of your end plate pressure here on your knife and your grinding plate rather than on the back as you're trying to turn the handle. And so I absolutely recommend this meat grinder. If you're in the market for a big manual meat grinder, definitely buy this. It's well worth the money. That pretty well concludes the meat grinder review portion. Stick around, we're going to stuff some casings. We got a little more work to do with this yet. We've got to add our cheese. We've got to get a little more water into it, and then we'll start stuffing casings with a big stuffer. So hang around. Okay, so we're continuing on with making our brats. We've got our seasoned twice ground meat with a couple pounds of pork lard added into it. It was a little lean. We need to have some fat. This was all seasoned with Legs Custom Blend 104 bratwurst seasoning. We did this stuff last year and it turned out really great. And then we used this high temp cheddar. This time we got it from Ask the Meat Man on Amazon. Nobody paid me to use these products. It's just what I could get, and it's what we can use. So next what we're going to do is we're going to take about half of our meat back into our lugger, about half of our cheese, and get it good and mixed up, and we'll get it into our stuffer, and then we'll mix up the other half and put the remainder into the stuffer. I think we can fit it all in there, but it's easier to mix up in smaller quantities. And so we'll get right into it. It's important to have clean hands when you start in on this. And so I'm going to go wash my hands a minute. It just doesn't work real great mixing meat with gloves on. It ends up down your gloves and everywhere else. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We're going to go ahead and start mixing up our meat. Clean luggers and everything. Food safety is important, especially with ground meat. I'm not going to preach to you about it. We're all responsible people. What I like to do is just put a nice layer of meat down here in the bottom and just kind of build it up in layers and then start to mix. So that looks pretty good. We'll get a layer of cheese going. And we'll get a little bit of water going in there. It's a little dry. Goes through the stuffer and into the casings a lot better if it's got some moisture content to it. Now all we're doing is just mixing it up and mushing the cheese into the meat. Alright, let's get some more meat in there. I'm grabbing these out in about thirds of the pile. This is a 25-pound batch. I probably mentioned that before. These packages of seasoning do 25 pounds. And so that makes it just a lot easier if you can do it in that kind of quantity. Make a mess once. A little more water. And start mushing. We're using high temp cheddar and just regular Legs brat seasoning. We did this last year. It was the first time we made our own pork brats from pigs that we raised, and it turned out really good, so we decided that it would be good just to stick with what we know works. Everybody likes cheddar brats who's getting these. We raise pigs for my wife and I and our family, my brother and my parents, and so this batch of brats is getting split 3 ways. Everybody likes it. It makes it easy. Now I've got more pork in the freezer to use for our sausage and things like that. I better take the candy packets out. Drop your water on your workbench. And keep mixing. This might be easier if you have a big meat mixer. I have never had one, so you can leave a comment if you prefer a meat mixer or if you prefer to do it by hand. I think if I was going to do more than 25 pounds at a time, I would maybe want to think about getting a bigger meat mixer. Or maybe a manually cranked one. Okay, I'm going to grab a little more water in there because it's kind of dry, and we'll keep mixing. Okay, that should get us pretty good. I guess we've added about 1.5 quarts to this 25 pounds of meat. Yeah, that's pretty good consistency there. We just want to mix this nice and thoroughly. Probably not a very exciting thing to watch, but it's part of the process. So. Okay, pretty happy with how that looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my hands up a minute. And I'm going to get the stuffer prepped and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got all of our meat mixed up now. We're going to go ahead and get it into our stuffer tube. I just kind of take a big ball and just plop it in there. And we're getting a little full. This table has been washed and sanitized, so don't freak out. Everything's okay. Alright, throw that in the wash. We're going to grab some fresh gloves quickly. Okay. So our stuffer here is an old one made by F. Dick in Germany. We were able to get this at a yard sale. Got a really good price on it used. It's old. We had to do a little bit of work to it. It's a good machine. I've just got 25 pounds of meat in there. I highly recommend one if you can get one. For doing brats, we're going to use a number 32 casing, 32 millimeters from LEM, smoked collagen casing. It's what I could get locally at the time. So let's grab our horns. Okay, we've got our stuffing horn, our lock ring. Let's go ahead and get the tube into the stuffer. We'll figure out what tube is going to work best. That's the winner right there. I know I'm not going to need all of this casing. There's enough there to do about 40 pounds of meat, so we'll slide that on and then we'll cut some of it off. Since I'm doing this by myself, I'm going to just tie a knot in the end of my casing. And to make life easy, we're going to throw some butcher paper down. Shiny side up. Okay, that looks good. We've got our stuffer clamped down. I don't have a permanent table made up for this yet. This is a 3-speed stuffer, high, medium, and we're in low gear there now for doing our stuffing. And then this little wing screw back here, you open that up to release the air as you get your stuffer started. So, yeah, time to start stuffing. Come in real slow and just kind of compress it nice and slow. And what this is going to do is it's going to just help let some air out. You'll know when it's time to start going. You'll get meat coming out of your stuffing tube. Just kind of take a loose grip on it. You don't want to overstuff your casings. It's very easy to get too much into a collagen casing or even a hog casing and end up having a hard time. Normally, if you have a helper, right now your helper, just kind of snake it out as you go, and that makes it a lot easier because there's going to be a lot here, but unfortunately I have to do this by myself today. Okay, I enjoy time in the shop. Just take your time with this part. Try to avoid rupturing a casing. There's no need to be in a hurry here. Here comes my little helpers.
Yeah.
Hi, honey. Okay. We've got a little bit of an air pocket going on, so we just take our knife, Just give it a little poke with the tip of your knife, it won't hurt anything. Then you can just kind of hand stuff that meat up there a little further. And continue cranking. Hi, honey.
Ready.
My daughter Kaisa's in here. She's trying to figure out who I'm talking to. You'll want to have a pretty large table set up when you start in on this process. This is an 8-foot table. More space is always helpful. Okay, coming up on the end of my casing there, so we'll just kind of real nice and easy sneak up on it. We've got a little more meat left in here. We're actually only about halfway through, so I'm going to grab some more casing. We'll get this guy taken care of real quick. Grab out another length of butcher paper. The rest of our casing here. Hopefully we've got enough. Sorry, I have to keep crisscrossing in front of you, but that's the way she goes. It's important when you're stuffing your casings that you don't overstuff it. We need to be able to twist it into links for individual brats, and so Don't overstuff them. We're getting down there towards the end of our meat now. We're down to about here in our tube. And we didn't make it. We've got a couple of pounds of meat left in there that we ran out of casing, so that's okay. I have some hog casing in the house, so I'll do that a little bit later. We'll be right back in a minute here, and we'll start twisting into lengths. Okay, so with our leftover brat mix, I've got some bags here. We're just going to package it in bulk. It's nice to use for spaghetti and stuff like that on occasion. And so you fill these bags just like you do a brat casing, just a little at a time. You can see it's got a line on it that says 1 pound. We'll throw that on our scale. Sure enough, 1 pound, right on the money. So we're just going to repeat this process until we've got that all of it out of the stuffer, and then we'll continue on with our process. So I looked at the package of brat casing, and it says there's enough there for 21 pounds. So it's no wonder that we ran a couple pounds short. We're starting to get a little bit of air out of the stuffer now, so we're getting real close here. Between the weight of the meat and the cheese, there's a little more than 25 pounds there, so. Grab a couple more bags. We've got hog rings that we close these bags up with. I'm not going to show you that. It's a boring process. And that right there is the end of the road. Six and a half pounds, just bulk package. That's not too bad. I'm gonna set these aside and get them in the cooler, and we'll be right back. Okay, real quickly, we'll go through twisting these guys into links. I like to use the width of my palm as just kind of a measurement. Pinch and twist, pinch and twist. Just like that. It's best to let your brats refrigerate for 24 hours before freezing them. It lets the flavors all meld together. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of content, I guess let me know and I'll make some more. Have a good one.